what is your unfair advantage? So your story has put you through a life on a course because it's the one thing that we all have that nobody else has. What's her unfair advantage on the investment side? Well, the people that buy $2, $3, $4, $5 million homes are the people that can write $2, $3, $500,000 checks because they're buying those homes. So that's an immediate unfair advantage from a totally different perspective than what most of us would think. Your unfair advantage has 6 parts. The first one is your story. And Amir, what I like about you is I know you went through my training before you came here. You know how I know? Because you started with your story when you came up here. Did you guys notice that? As a matter of fact, everybody, these two, if I bring anybody else up here, they'll tell you their story. The first thing they'll do is they'll tell you their story. Why? Because it's the one thing that we all have that nobody else has. It's the one thing. And your story, if you think it through methodically and you follow the process that we have, what it'll do is it'll allow you to introduce yourself in a way where, hey, I understand this person, I can relate to this person, and I can see why they're doing it, and I don't know why, but I think I trust them. Because you can relate to that story. That's the hardest thing most people struggle with is actually telling their story. I have literally, when I got hired by companies before we were doing our own deals to raise capital, one of the funds we did was almost $70 million. The first thing I had to do with the founder is sit down with the guy and like bolt him to the chair and make sure he told me the story. Because I had to tell the story. I had to sell the story of the business. Why him, why it, why the business, and in what manner. That was literally, and he would fight me tooth and nail on it. He's a big CEO of a major company before. He's snotty-nosed, 30-something-year-old kid, 20-something-year-old kid, trying to pin him down on all this other stuff. He's just like, he thought it was silly. But then as we went through the process, he got it. And I'm telling you, the story piece is the biggest piece. It's the first piece. Because if you don't have a story, why don't I just go buy an ETF? Why don't I just go buy a stock? Why don't I just invest with my advisor? Why don't I just this? Why don't I just that? And your second one is your why. By the way, if your why is as simple as my wife and I are looking for a way to retire from our government jobs. We're looking for a way to put up sustainable housing because there's a housing shortage. Whatever your why is, own that why. Because what'll happen is 2 things. One, people will say, hey, I understand why Denise and Stuart are doing what they're doing. I can see myself in them, or I can see someone in my family in them. Or in the context of something a little bit more altruistic, like what Amir's talking about, in the context of solving an affordable housing shortage, I can get behind that too, because I can see people through him. So how do I buy into your story and your why? That's the biggest piece. The next 2 are your investment strategy and your asset class. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when somebody pitches me like 6 things all at once. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's like, hey, we're working on this deal. And then, by the way, I have this thing. And then, my wife and I, we run this babysitting business on the side and we're looking for money for that too. And it's like, whoa, like how many things do you have going on? Now, look, you may have multiple businesses. Most entrepreneurs do. As an investor, I want you focused on the thing that I'm potentially writing you a check for. So don't lie to me. Don't tell me you don't have something if you do. But if you do have too many things on your plate, you may want to reconsider your goals and your options. Because I, as an investor, any serious investor, won't invest with you if you have this short-term rental business and you're doing these mortgages and you're doing this land development over here. Yeah, it's all real estate, but any sophisticated investor is going to go, okay, so how do you divide your time? Like, which of these 3 things is taking up all your time? It's a big deal. So how do you define it? Your investment strategy and your asset class. And both of those, the market should have been part of that too. And I'll also obviously define the market, and we'll talk more about that. And then finally, the last one and the most important one, and then I want to break you guys out, is what is your unfair advantage? So your story has put you through a life on a course. And you've connected with different people, you've done different things, you've got different experiences. What is that unfair advantage that you now have because of the experiences you've had in your life? What is that culmination of you? For me, my unfair advantage is simple. I started in private equity when I was 21 years old. So literally, I was reading offering memorandums and term sheets and looking at bigger deals and transactions, 100, 200, 300 unit buildings when I was in my early 20s. To me, I thought everybody was buying apartment buildings because that was the world I was in. The concept of buying a duplex in my mind was silly at that point. It just didn't make sense because I was immediately exposed to another world. Doesn't mean it was wrong or right. It's just, it was my experience. And because of that experience, I had a tremendous unfair advantage because I thought it was normal for people to raise millions or tens of millions of dollars. To me, it was a normal thing. I didn't have the block of, oh, well, what about this? What about that? It was, no, it's what we do. We raise money. This is a deal. It's an opportunity for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was an unfair advantage for me. Another unfair advantage that I developed was public speaking. I used to be terrified of this. Now it's like breathing. I don't think about it. I literally went to Toastmasters and I was shaking like a leaf. Do you guys know what Toastmasters, anybody know what Toastmasters is? You guys remember? Okay. So Toastmasters, I went in Oakville because I went to Sheridan initially, Sheridan College in Oakville. They had a Toastmasters there. And literally I went to Toastmasters. I was shaking like a leaf for the first 6 months, but I had to get over my fear of doing this because I knew if I wanted to move the needle in my life, I had to get comfortable with this.